NATO is the most powerful military alliance in the world. The alliance of 31 European and North American states dominates the world and consists of the most militarily powerful countries in the world, all to the detriment of NATO's self-proclaimed adversary, Russia. However, in the course of Russia's global political ambitions, it founded its very own NATO. This is also a military alliance of different countries and, just like NATO, there is also an alliance clause. This states that if a country is attacked by a foreign power, all other members will stand by that country. However, this is precisely where Russia's anti-NATO seems to be failing, and it is only a shadow of its former self. So what is this alliance all about, how powerful is it really, and why is it threatening to collapse right now? We look at all these questions in today's video. Russia's anti-NATO was founded in the year 2002 under the name Collective Security Treaty Organization, or CSTO for short. It currently has 6 members. In addition to Russia, these are Belarus and Armenia, as well as the 3 Central Asian states of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. The organization emerged from a cooperative community that was founded shortly after the collapse of the Soviet Union in the year 1992. The aim was to continue to form a strong military alliance despite independence, and at the time the 3 countries of Azerbaijan, Georgia and Uzbekistan were also members. However, these countries quickly broke away to pursue their own foreign policy. And so today the CSTO consists of 6 members, although the alliance is of course clearly dominated by Russia. And this also made the alliance's anti-NATO stance clear fairly quickly, which is why it was organized as an opponent to the North Atlantic Treaty from the outset. Officially, the main objectives are to guarantee the security, sovereignty and territorial integrity of the member states, but in reality Russia uses the organization to maintain its influence over neighboring states. Its headquarters are in Moscow and its most important instrument is the Rapid Reaction Force. This first made a name for itself in January 2022 when it intervened in Kazakhstan. Following mass protests in the Central Asian country, the Kazakh president requested the intervention force, claiming that the demonstrators were terrorists and groups trained abroad. This narrative was supported by Putin, who described the insurgents as a criminal Western forces. And so the alliance fell, all members deployed troops and finally crushed the protests. At this point, the alliance seemed to be working and mutual support could be relied upon. But the situation was to change quite quickly. As we know, the Russian invasion of Ukraine followed just 1 month later, and most members of the CSTO were not particularly positive about it. We have to bear in mind that many of the ex-Soviet republics are in the same boat as Ukraine. Some of them are direct neighbors of Russia, have large Russian minorities in their own country and are therefore afraid of becoming the next victim of Russia's expansion plans. A good example of this is Kazakhstan. Russians make up over 1/3 of the total population there, and the country has a long, difficult-to-defend border with Russia. It is therefore not surprising that the country refused to support Russia in the invasion. It also refuses to recognize the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics to this day. However, the biggest crisis and de facto declaration of bankruptcy of the CSTO was witnessed in September last year. Fighting broke out between Azerbaijan and CSTO member Armenia. The Armenian Ministry of Defense declared that Azerbaijan had attacked Armenian territory and therefore activated the organization's alliance case. However, the country did not actually receive any support from its partners. Russia, which was preoccupied with the fighting in Ukraine, announced early on that it would not be sending any support troops. All other members also held back, with only a small fact-finding mission being sent. This was of course a slap in the face for Armenia, and protests broke out across the country against the CSTO and Russia for abandoning their ally. And indeed, the Russian archenemy finally came to the aid of the Armenians and mediated the situation. The USA. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, immediately visited Armenia and promised the country aid and support, and a ceasefire was also negotiated with Azerbaijan. And this incident is now seen as the end of the CSTO. After all, what good is it for a country to be a member of a defense organization if it receives no support in the event of defense? The members of the organization are therefore looking for new patrons, as Russia does not seem to be reliable. In the case of Armenia, this is the USA. In the case of the Central Asian countries, it appears to be China. China is skillfully exploiting the power vacuum and is constantly expanding its influence in these ex-Soviet states. And this cooperation also appears to be increasingly gaining a military foothold. For example, Kyrgyzstan simply cancelled a military exercise with Russia planned for October without prior notice. And the Tajik president is also becoming increasingly hostile towards Putin. This leaves only Russia and Belarus. With the war in Ukraine, Russia has achieved what it always wanted to prevent, and the CSTO has failed. The major beneficiaries of the power play are the USA and China, which can thus further expand their geopolitical influence.